What do the revenue, cost, and demand curve look like for firms operating under the monopolistic competition type of market structure? We can take a look at that in this particular section. Monopolistically competitive firms are going to face a downward sloping demand curve that is relatively flat. So here we notice that because firms operating under monopolistic competition have some market power, they have the ability to set prices just a little bit, they are going to face a downward sloping demand curve. No longer are we going to see that horizontal demand curve under perfect competition because every single firm was essentially the same under that type of market structure and they were seen as price takers. Because we are no longer a price taker, we do have a downward sloping demand curve. However, we notice that the demand curve is not as steep as what we saw under the monopoly case. Remember, we had a very inelastic or very steep demand curve under monopoly, and that was because they had the most market power. Here, because we have a little bit of market power but not a lot, we do have a demand curve that is still downward sloping but relatively flat because of competition. And like we said before, the marginal revenue curve is always half the slope of our demand curve, so it's always going to be under our demand curve. So as we take a look at the demand and marginal revenue curves right here, what is profit going to look like? Well, not surprisingly, we're going to follow the same 5-step pattern for maximizing profits under this market structure as well. So bringing in our cost curves right here, we do the same 5-step methodology. What is step number 1 in order for firms to profit maximize? We need to go ahead and find out where marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. So this intersection right here, MR equals to MC. Step number 2 is to find the profit maximizing output or quantity. You just go straight down. Hey, that is your Q star. Step number 3 is to find your profit maximizing price. Remember that you're always going to reprice off of the demand curve, so you go straight to wherever the demand curve is. Once you hit that, go to the cost and price axis, and that is going to be the price of the good that the firm should be charging. Step number 4 is to find the ATC. So at the MR equal to MC intersection, find where ATC is going to be. It can be above, it can be exactly at the intersection or below it once again. And here we notice that the ATC is above the intersection right here, but below the price. So anytime price is greater than ATC, we are going to have some type of profits. So step number 5 is to find the area for profits, price minus ATC times our profit maximizing quantity, and that will give us this area right here for profits. So same 5-step pattern for maximizing profits under the monopolistic competition case as we saw with our other market structures. And we can see the same sort of situations arising. If price is bigger than ATC, we have profits. If price is exactly equal to ATC, there's zero economic profit. And if price is less than ATC, that's exactly where the firm is going to be incurring some type of losses. And then the shutdown conditions are going to be applicable when we bring in the AVC curves, and whether or not price is greater than or less than AVC, that's where the firm is going to want to shut down or not. So same 5-step pattern for maximizing profits. What is going to be a little bit different, however, is what happens when we transition over to the long run. So in the short run, firms can absolutely have some type of profits, losses, or zero economic profit under the monopolistically competitive market structure. However, one of the key features in the long run is that every single firm has to be earning zero economic profit or normal profits in the long run for this market structure. So how exactly do we transition over to the long run? If you remember from perfect competition, remember that if a firm was earning profits, that would incentivize a lot more firms to enter into the industry, and that would cause market supply to increase, which would lower price and essentially eliminate all the profits. So essentially the elimination principle. And of course, this happens vice versa as well. If a firm is earning losses, firms are going to exit the industry, and that's going to raise the price. And because every single firm is seen as a price taker, they have to take the prices as given on the marketplace, and that's exactly where firms are going to be earning zero economic profit in the long run. We see a similar process happening under monopolistic competition. However, it's not the supply curve that's going to be affected, it is going to be the demand curve that is affected. And the reason why demand is going to be affected is because remember that this firm has a monopoly over this particular good. They are the only ones that can sell this particular product because the product is differentiated. However, as more and more firms enter and leave the industry, that's going to cause some implications for competition for this particular firm. So as there's more competition in the industry, as there's less competition in the industry, remember that this firm is operating under a bigger subset of the industry itself. So therefore, is there more competition or is there less competition? And that's exactly where these long run adjustments do come into play. And we'll do this both ways. So if firms are earning an economic profit, obviously, like we said said before, new firms are going to want to enter into the industry. Firms want to get their share of profits, so they're going to be incentivized to enter the industry if firms are earning profits. However, as new firms enter into the industry, there's going to be increased competition, which reduces the demand for every single individual seller. So here, it's not the supply curve that's going to be affected, it is the demand curve under monopolistic competition. So do be very cognizant of this. It is the demand curve that's affected under monopolistic competition, while the supply curve is affected under perfect competition. Do not confuse the two because they are completely separate from one another. As there's more competition, as demand is going to decrease, it's going to shift the demand curve over to the left, and in the long run, every single seller is going to be earning a normal profit, so that price equals to ATC, or average total cost, and that is exactly where we're going to be resting in our long run equilibrium. So let's go ahead and do this transition both ways, and we'll see exactly what this looks like graphically. So take a look at the long run transitions. So long run transitions. With these long run transitions, we'll go ahead and say that what happens if a firm is earning profits? And we'll do the opposite case in parentheses right here. So read everything in parentheses together, read everything not in parentheses together as well. So profits cause new firms to enter into the industry. So profits cause new firms to enter. The opposite of that is exit the industry. The industry. Remember that as we transition over to the long run, firms can actually enter and leave the industry now. So profits cause new firms to enter into the industry. That's something that is apparent. However, as more firms enter the industry, there's going to be increased competition. Increased, opposite case is decreased. Decreased. Competition reduces demand. Reduces, increases demand. So here, as more and more firms enter the industry, there's going to be more competition for this particular firm, and that's going to reduce their demand. So more competition reduces demand for this particular firm or this particular company for their sort of product that they're selling. And when this occurs, this is going to shift the demand curve for the individual firm over to the left. So here, increased competition reduces demand, shifting the demand curve. Shifting demand curve. Demand curve for individual firm. For individual firm to the left. And of course, opposite case is going to be on the right. So here, profits cause new firms to enter the industry. This leads to increased competition, which reduces demand, shifting the demand curve for this individual firm over to the left. And of course, vice versa. That's everything in the parentheses that we see right here. Losses cause new firms or firms to exit the industry. Decreased competition increases demand, shifting demand curve for individual firm over to the right. And when this occurs, how is that going to look like in our sort of curves that we illustrated so far? So we said that the firm was earning profits, so there's going to be more competition, and that should cause the demand curve to shift over to the left. And as the demand curve shifts over to the left, we notice that, hey, now every single firm is going to be earning zero economic profits or normal profits in the long run because price is exactly equal to ATC. So from before, we had this curve, this sort of demand and cost curves, but as firms are earning profits, this is going to cause the demand curve to shift over to the left because there is more competition, and the demand curve is going to continue to keep on shifting left until it intersects the ATC curve where price exactly equals to ATC. And when we do the 5-step pattern for maximizing profits, every single firm is now earning zero economic profits or normal profits, and this is going to occur in the long run. So as you can see right here, the transition from the short run to the long run follows a similar process as we laid out under perfect competition, but now it's going to be the demand that is affected, not the supply curve. So do be very, very cognizant and be aware of that. So with all of this, as we transition over to the long run, there are a few implications that we're going to have in terms of efficiency and welfare. So how efficient and how efficient and how much welfare do you think there's going to be in a monopolistically competitive type of market structure compared to, say, the monopoly or compared to perfect competition? And what exactly is that going to say for us in an economic sense. We'll go ahead and wrap up monopolistic competition with that sort of concept and with this type of discussion in the next video. I'll see you guys there.